What's going on, Fantasy Chefs? Hope you're doing well. Got your week 5 early bird looking for week 5 of your FanDuel and DraftKings NFL slates. Unfortunately, the gentlemen over at FanDuel don't have their act together just yet, and the FanDuel lineups aren't out when we do this recording. So the analysis applies to FanDuel, but the pricing does not. So pricing obviously only applicable to DraftKings, but hopefully you can take the thoughts and advice and apply them to your FanDuel lineups if you're a FanDuel only player. And this is not a lineup selection show. This is just an overview of the early bird looking, where we go through and see the matchups at first glance and give you some advice on who might have a good matchup and who might have a good week. So we'll go position by position, starting out first with quarterback, Mr. Ben Roethlisberger going up against the Atlanta Falcons. Love this matchup for Big Ben. I think it's worth spending the money on Ben this week, coming off a really poor game against Baltimore. I think that Roethlisberger bounces back. I think that this offense bounces back. Atlanta's secondary is pretty awful and extremely banged up right now with injury. Lost their safety. I think they have a cornerback that is banged up as well, possibly out. Love Roethlisberger at home. He has been a home quarterback his whole career. Think he has a big game there against Atlanta. If all else fails, you know Atlanta's going to score as well, so look for that game to be a shootout. I'm pretty sure Vegas has that at like 57 points right now, which is absolutely insane. Not sure it goes over 57, but it actually just might. Next up, Phillip Rivers, Mr. Consistent. If you're looking for a quarterback in the low 20s who's almost a bank for that each week, that's Mr. Rivers. Matt Ryan going up against Pittsburgh. Love him too. Probably your Ben Roethlisberger Jr. of the week. The only hesitation I have with Matt Ryan is that if you look at his only road game this year at Philadelphia, same type of field, same type of atmosphere, only came away with 9 fantasy points. I don't think that he does this bad. I think Philly has a much, much better defense than Pittsburgh. However, on the road, you just don't know with Matt Ryan. I don't have his career splits for the road, but this team's a high-paced, high-flying dome team. So I'd temper expectations a little bit on Matt Ryan, but then again, Vegas thinks 57.5 going up against Pittsburgh, ranked 29th right now against quarterbacks. I think he's pretty safe. Just saying, there's a little bit of hesitation there. Jared Goff, don't get crazy swept up in the 45-point game. Look, he's scoring in the mid-20s. Otherwise, I think that's probably where his norm lies, low 20s to mid-20s. But just don't get too high on Goff. Seattle, though, without Earl Thomas, this week could be a sneaky play for Jared Goff if you're looking for a mid-tier quarterback. But for $100 more, I probably go with Matt Ryan. For $300 more, I'd probably go with Roethlisberger. Just for higher ceiling, right? Goff, on the road at Seattle. Seattle's a tough environment. I like the upside of the other two players a little bit better. Even Phillip Rivers. Cam Newton, what he can do on the ground. Wouldn't be a bad pick there at 64. Patrick Mahomes, staying away from him. Jacksonville is just a fantasy killer. Aaron Rodgers, got to be staying away from him too. He could blow up at any given moment, but I don't know that the knee's a problem anymore. I mean, he ran 5 times against Buffalo last week for 31 yards. I really don't think the knee is much of an issue anymore. He's just not getting the touchdowns. 1 touchdown in 2 of 4 weeks. Most touchdowns was week 1 against Chicago. I think Chicago's defense got tired in that game. I think they were a little overhyped to start that game and wore out towards the end. I don't know. I just don't think Rodgers has the same offense that he's used to. I think that maybe Green Bay is a late season team, and they're still winning, but for fantasy purposes, I think hold off. Mariota, don't like him on the road at Buffalo. I am a Buffalo fan. I will admit it. Don't hold it against me. So maybe a homer pick, but Buffalo is much better at home, especially on defense, and I just don't see Mariota lighting up the scoreboard. He might have a mediocre game, might have even a good game, but for your quarterback right now, with all the quarterbacks and what they're doing, blowing up, you got your Patrick Mahomes, you got your Mitch Trubisky. You want 30 points out of your quarterback. I just don't see Mariota being able to get that. Kirk Cousins, don't think you get that from him either this week. Andy Dalton, probably not. Dalton, I think Dalton and Rivers are kind of my two middle of the road guys where if you need 18 to 22 points, and you're in a bind salary wise, I don't mind going to them. Both guys are in passing offenses. So, if you went Dalton, if you rode the Dalton wave again this week, not hating that. Carson Wentz, maybe a good time for Carson Wentz, 5,800. He had a solid game last week, 24 points. He's only going to be getting better. 50 attempts last week, 37 the week before. I thought no way in week 3 would they have him throw the ball more than like 25 times. Comes out with 37 and then 50 in the very next game. You could tell that Philly is not scared of the injury. I feel fine rolling Wentz out. My Minnesota's defense does not seem like what it was cut out to be to start this year. Matt Stafford, another middle tier guy, throws the ball a lot. 30 attempts at least in all 4 games this year. The touchdowns are there. I probably don't see him going over 30 this week. So if you're looking for maybe a cheaper option for the low 20s, he's a good option. And I think that's it. I don't see any of these other guys in the lower levels with great matchups that jump out at me that I would want to start over the higher tier guys. I know we went Josh Allen last week on the GPP picks. Absolute stinker there. But any of these younger guys, Sam Darnold, Josh Rosen, probably staying away from. I'm not getting lured into that again. All right, running backs. Start off, Mr. Todd Gurley. What do you say? What do you say about Gurley? Best running back in the league, probably best running back that the league has had in 5 years. This guy is insane. He's got everything going for him. Good coach, a good offense. He's getting the ball. He scores touchdowns. He catches. He runs. You're getting 25 plus from this guy every week. Super expensive though, right? 9,400. Super expensive. On the road against Seattle. Maybe LA turns the run game hardcore this week to try and silence the crowd over in Seattle. Might be a good option. But be aware of that salary. Melvin Gordon, 27.9 fantasy points so far this season. Look, he's only 0.4 under Todd Gurley, and he's 800 less. So, man, Gordon at home against the Oakland defense that isn't great at 27th. Maybe Gordon's the go-to guy this week. Christian McCaffrey. McCaffrey has got to be the most underrated running back this season. The guy's getting 28 attempts rushing last week. Week before, 15 targets in the passing game. I don't know. I just think that McCaffrey is a shoo-in for 100 all-purpose yards every week. This week 14.5 points. I think that's an anomaly. Week 1, just throw it out. Just throw it out. It's still preseason. These guys hardly practice. They're still in figuring themselves out form. Throw it out. Ride McCaffrey. Love McCaffrey at 8,000. I don't think that's too expensive. I think he's a shoe-in for 20 points at least. Saquon, I think Saquon is a solid pick here. His salary's cut down to 7,700. He was at 79 this past week. Man, he's just not getting the attempts that you'd like to see him get. I don't know what's going on with that Giants defense. I'm sorry, that Giants offense. I know the line's terrible, but you got to give Saquon Barkley more than 10 carries, right? He's averaging 4.5 a carry. Not bad. 4.5 a carry. Give the ball to him 3 times. It's a first down every time. I know football doesn't work that way, but the average is there. He's getting the targets in the passing game. I think if this is the guy's floor, he really hasn't broken out yet. The big run, the 68-yard run in week 1, but he really hasn't even broken out yet, and his floor is, I think, sitting around low 20s. It's just a matter of time with this guy. You got to think that the Giants get it together at some point this year with the offensive line. Barkley, possible blow-up player there. Staying away from Connor. Just don't think that he's getting the looks. Mixon looks like he's probably going to be out another week. You've got Gio Bernard, who got banged up in the last couple plays of the game there, so keep an eye on him. Looks like Freeman's going to be out for a little bit longer. Even so, I don't like Tevin Coleman. He's just not. He's not producing. 3.6 yards a carry, 2.2 yards a carry. I don't know. I think this guy is just a third down back. I don't think that he's somebody who can carry the load. I'm staying away from Tevin Coleman. David Johnson. Man, this is a matchup that is a little bit tempting here. I know Johnson's numbers are awful. I know that, 22 attempts last game. Only got 71 yards with 21-yard run mixed in there. So if you take the 21-yard run, and so over 21 attempts, right? So the one attempt for the 20-yard run, the 21 attempts and only 50 yards. Rough, I know. But do you think maybe Josh Rosen comes in and can, in his second game, get the jitters out, maybe give some spark to that offense against San Francisco, who's been pretty terrible defensively? I don't know. Maybe David Johnson's the breakout guy this week that everybody wishes they played. We'll see. Leonard Fournette going to be out this week again. Stay away from him. Which leads me to TJ Yeldon. This guy's been keeping up his end of the bargain here. 24 points, 15 points the week before. I think that Yeldon is a sneaky play. If you think about it, they're going up against KC on the road. Doug Marrone is predominantly a running coach. I think that they want to slow KC down, slow that pace down in that game. Try and win that on defense and by running the ball. KC's defense is not good, and I look for, because of Fournette being out, I look for TJ Yeldon to light it up and probably get close to 30 carries in this game. Marshawn Lynch, somebody who killed me last week, not because of how he played, but because I almost put him in the lineup. 130 total yards. 130 yards on the ground, 157 total yards. Beast mode is insane. This guy's in his almost mid-30s, and he's still trucking people, and his salary is still ridiculous. I think at 5,500, he's still pretty cheap. Last week was at 4,800, and he was almost too good to pass up, but of course I did, and I'm kicking myself for Matt Breida. Really good matchup against Arizona. I think he's continuing to get his looks. If you look at his attempts, he's getting right around 10 a game and about 3 to 4 targets. So 13 to 15 touches a game. He's got to break one, so he's a little expensive, I think, at 5,700. But he's going up against Arizona. Possibly could give up the big play. Dion Lewis, I'm staying away from. Carlos Hyde, I'm staying away from just because of the matchup with Baltimore. Jay Ajayi, I'm staying away from. Don't think he's the same player he was years ago. Um, Buck Allen, maybe. I don't know. It's a coin toss with those Baltimore running backs. And I don't really see anybody low here on the totem pole until we get to our man, Aaron Jones. I think Aaron Jones is a great play this week. I watched him all game last week against Buffalo. This guy runs hard. He's decisive. He finds holes that aren't there. 4,300. I think he is the steal of the week. He's getting the touches. He got 11 attempts last week. Only got one pass, I understand, but they're going to look at this tape, 6 yards a carry. They're going to look at this tape and they're going to see how good this guy was. They're going to give him the ball more. I see Aaron Jones being a really, really good sneaky play this week. Not only in GPP, but I think in cash too. I think for how cheap this guy is, you can stuff him in your flex, and I think you can get a return of 15 or more points this week. All right, moving on to wide receivers. Scroll up here. Antonio Brown, I think he's just too expensive. I know the matchup here is amazing with Atlanta, and I know I've been touting uh, um, Ben Roethlisberger, but man, I don't know. Even with the 11 targets, the 17 targets, he's not doing anything. 60 yards, 67 yards. He hasn't even broken 100 yards. This isn't the Antonio Brown that we're used to. I know touchdowns in every game, but man, even with the targets and the touchdowns, he's under 20 points in the majority of his games this year. I'm just nervous to invest $9,100 in this guy. I'm nervous. I mean, if he was in the 8,000s, I'd say all day, man. Man, yeah, take Antonio Brown in the 8,000s. But as the number one receiver here, I'm nervous. I don't know. Julio Jones. I mean, can this guy buy a touchdown, please? 173 yards in week 4, 169 in week 1. He's insane. He's a monster. He's probably the best wide receiver in the NFL, if not top 2, maybe 3. You could make an argument for. But he doesn't get touchdowns. He kills you with those touchdowns. So, maybe against a terrible Pittsburgh defense, he comes through with a TD this week. I don't know. It's tough to buy at 8,500, but I might be willing to. I said with Antonio Brown, if he was in the 8,000s, I look at Julio Jones. I look at this Pittsburgh team. I look at the over under that Vegas is putting up for this game. I think Julio Jones, now that I think about it, could he put up $150? Maybe a touch. I think that's possible. The targets are there. Yeah, I could easily see Julio Jones with 25 points this week. All right, Odell Beckham. I stay away from Odell Beckham now. He's burned me too much, too many times. He's boom or bust. And even when he's boom this year, he's not even boom. He's only low 20s, mid to low 20s. New York killing me. I'm staying away. Keenan Allen, same thing. I think he's banged up. I think something's wrong there. No touchdowns. This guy's a touchdown monster. He's just not getting him this year. I'm staying away. Adam Thielen, you got to ride this guy every week. Maybe not in DFS, but if you got him if you got him in season long, heck, look at this guy. 30, 27, 34. Maybe you do ride him DFS every week. 12 targets, 19 targets, 13 targets, 100 yards in every game. That's just amazing. He's matchup proof. They lose to Buffalo 6-27. They barely have any offense. This guy still is getting 19 targets, 105 and 27.5 DraftKings points. Yeah, ride Thielen. He's matchup proof. For 7,700, I mean, this guy is performing more than Antonio Brown. Philly, he's got Stephon Diggs to take coverage away. He's got Rudolph down the middle to take coverage away. Yeah, I like Thielen all day. Devontae Adams, same thing as Aaron Rodgers. If you look at Devontae Adams, he's not getting thrown the ball down the field. 10 per catch, 7.4 per catch, 8 per catch. The targets are there, right? The touchdowns are there. He's just missing out on the yards, and it's hampering his effectiveness. For $7,600, you want a receiver in the mid 20s, mid to low 20s at worst. He just makes me nervous here. especially on the road at Detroit. I'm probably staying away from Devontae Adams. You know what? Unless Cobb and Allen are still out. If Cobb and Allen are still out, I probably ride Devontae Adams as the only target Green Bay has, even against a Lions defense ranked first, I believe, against the pass. Yeah, first against wide receivers in DraftKings. Juju, love Juju here. I think Juju might be the guy to start out of this Atlanta Pittsburgh game. Coming off a rough game against Baltimore, but if you look at his previous couple games, I mean he's getting the targets, over 10 targets, 3 straight weeks. He's missing on the TDs the last 2 weeks, but I think he goes back and gets a touch this week. I'm probably putting Juju in my lineups. Brandon Cooks, solid pick there. AJ Green, the same. Sanders going up against the Jets. Matchups are okay in all three of those. I don't think that anything to write home about, but if you were big on any of those guys, wouldn't hate you for starting them. Stefon Diggs, I think this guy's matchup proof as well. He did have the bad game against Buffalo. Trey White is a really good cornerback, though, probably a Pro Bowl candidate. Was second in Rookie of the Year running last year, so I can forgive Diggs for that one. Came back strong last week. Tyreek Hill, not playing him against Jacksonville. Jacksonville is fantasy killers. As we go down the line, I like Cooper Kupp. I like Kenny Galladay. Kelvin Ridley, probably the Juju Smith-Schuster equivalent here for Atlanta. Tyler Boyd, I cannot tell you to play Tyler Boyd enough. This guy is the real deal. Like, not just opportunity, but talent. 15 targets last week. We had him in every lineup, 100 yards. I know he's missing out on those TDs, but last week at least, but he had two in the previous 2 weeks. Something happened with the Cincinnati team. They're now a predominantly passing team. Even when Joe Mixon's in there, they pass the ball quite a bit. Love me some Boyd, especially if John Ross is out, which it looks like he is. He pulled a muscle last week. Love Tyler Boyd. Oh, and Eifert's out, fractured ankle. Yeah, I mean, if season-long leagues, you go trade for Boyd. DFS, ride Boyd, 5,700. It's got to at least be a flex. Sterling Shepard, got to look for the Ingram, injury designation. Still like him though, even if Ingram's in, which I don't think he is. I think the prognosis on Ingram was a couple weeks, but love Sterling Shepard there as the second receiving option. And as we get down towards the bottom, not really seeing any guys that impress me much. Tyler Lockett, he always has a chance to score, but I think like 17 is his ceiling. All right, let's get to tight end. Zach Ertz, Carson Wentz's best friend. 14 targets last week, 112 yards. He's missing out on the TDs this year, though. Last year, he was a TD monster, but, man, when you can get 20 and 24 from your tight end, geez, no wonder why he's the highest price guy here. I think he's better than Gronk so far. Well, he is better than Gronk so far, but I think he's better than Gronk going forward. Until New England gets that offense sorted out, Gronkowski's always an injury concern as well. Kelsey, I'm staying away from against Jacksonville. One of these guys from KC is going to have a good game. It's just guessing who, and I don't want to guess, right? It's too risky there. Kittle, I think Kittle's matchup proof. I think he's quarterback proof. Love Kittle. He's a little expensive though at 5,400. Don't know if I'm going to be spending 5,400 on Kittle. I'd like some lower price guys down here like Njoku. Njoku had a great game, first game with Baker Mayfield fully. They got 7 targets, I think, against Baltimore this week. They throw the kitchen sink at Mayfield, and I think Mayfield needs to dump it off quite a bit. Love Njoku in that spot. Let's see, maybe one more tight end here. Maybe Hooper. Hooper's a good pick here against Pittsburgh in a GPP. I wouldn't play him in cash. He's too erratic in cash play. But for a GPP, I can see him getting 2 touchdowns, 30 yards, something like that. Maybe 15 points. So maybe worth a look there. All right, for defenses, I like to go cheap defenses unless there's a insane matchup, and I just don't see a really really good matchup where there's like a backup quarterback or like a really terrible team and a really great defense. Tennessee's defense is okay, but they're on the road at Buffalo. Like I mentioned before, Buffalo much better at home. I don't think they're a good team, so don't kill me for the Buffalo pick, but um, I just don't see for $4,000 the most expensive defense. I just don't see spending that much on the Titans. One defense I do like is maybe the Dolphins against Cincinnati. They come in at 2,200, so they're the third cheapest option as far as defenses go. And they've held their own. They got rocked against New England last week, but man, who didn't see that coming? New England wasn't going 1-3. I don't see this as a repeat. The Dolphins have 2 interceptions at least in each of their 4 games. Good sack numbers as well. I think this is probably a high scoring game. I think Vegas has this in the 50s, but man, for a couple turnovers, maybe even a defensive touchdown or a special teams touchdown for Miami to get you, I don't know, 8 to 10 points, I don't think is a reach. So I think they're a good cheap option. I also like the Browns against Baltimore. They're at home. They've had some pretty solid games. I know last week was a crazy barn burner game. 42 points. I'm sorry, 45 points they led up, but they're getting their turnovers. Miles Turner is insane on the D line there. I think that. The Browns are a solid pick here against Baltimore. Baltimore on the road isn't great. They're coming off a big win Sunday night against the Steelers. I know that game was on the road, but this is a good trap game I think for Baltimore. So wouldn't be mad if you picked the Browns. All right, so let's see. I know one big thing for DFS picks is against the spread. I'm sorry, not against the spread. Over unders. So let's take a look at some over unders. If I can get it up on the screen here. Some over unders for next week. Yeah, this Baltimore Cleveland game, 47. Kind of average there. So, game in the low 20s, probably right on par. Kansas City Jacksonville game opened up at 48. If you've been following the over-unders for Kansas City, they've been in the mid-50s, so a big drop off here. Vegas obviously believing in that Jacksonville defense. We've got Tennessee and Buffalo, I think is the lowest game this week. So, just like I was saying, stay away from those Tennessee Titans. And I don't even like them on defense. I really don't. It could be just because of their price. Giants game is low scoring as well. Atlanta Pittsburgh game. Look at this, 57. Open up at 56. It's already in a day gone up to 57.5. That game is going to be insane, especially in Pittsburgh. Let's see. All these three here are 50. I mean, man, how the NFL has changed to have the norm essentially be a 50 over and under. Pretty crazy. So, they like scoring for these 3 games here: the Cincinnati Miami game, Detroit Green Bay, and Oakland LA game. Low scoring in that San Francisco game. That's actually alarming. I would have thought that because of the 2 defenses there, this would have been a little bit high scoring. So maybe pump the brake on your David Johnson pick there and pump the brakes on any San Francisco players. So that's Breida and Breida. I don't think you're starting anybody else from San Francisco. All right. I think that about rounds it up. Nothing really more to mention. The rest of these games are kind of average, and the other 2 games are the nightcast games, so we don't play those as we only play the main slate for NFL. As always, keep it locked in here, guys. I know that the picks here are coming up soon, so our lineup picks, where we give you the full-blown lineup, not just an overview. We'll actually give you a lineup that will fit into FanDuel and DraftKings for our standard subscription, our fantasy cookbook, and for our premium subscription, we actually give out a bonus lineup and a bonus against the spread pick. Hope that you guys keep it locked in here, and as always, hope you guys are making tons of money, and good luck to you guys in week 5.